All right, guys, I am super excited today to introduce one of my favorite clients here. Her name is Justine. She is the owner of Refining Dogs down in the Austin, Texas area. And we've been working together for about a month now, a little bit over. And Justine is absolutely killing it in her business in the first 30 days. So Justine, why don't you just kind of kick it off for us and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in dog training?
Sure. So I attended Star Mark Academy. I worked there in the kennel for about a year, and at this time I didn't really know they had a dog training school when I got hired. But as I worked there, you see a lot of students go through, and it seemed really cool. And I've always been interested in dog training, so I decided to save up and get myself into that. Um, School was awesome. I learned a lot within the school, but after I graduated, I got hired on as a permanent trainer, and that's when I learned more and got a lot of more experience working with dogs. So I worked there for about 4 years working with dogs and getting my hands on a bunch of different BMODs and just basic obedience. And now I'm just trying to do it on my own.
Yeah. And you're doing a great job of doing it on your own.
Thanks.
So yeah, tell us a little bit more about like your experience at Starmark, because you actually ended up working with Nellie, right? Who's another client of ours.
So I was working there when Nellie went to school.
Okay.
So she was in the academy. I was already a trainer there, but I did see her occasionally working through school, and I think I talked to her a couple of times. But yes, I remember her for sure.
Awesome. Cool. And so did they kind of give you any hands-on experience when it comes to like working with clients one-on-one, like sales or anything like that? Or was it really just the dog training side of things?
In the school, you do get a lot of hands-on experience. They assign you dogs to work with as they are teaching you things, and you have to work them up to a certain point, pass tests. They also cover, group classes, how to do that, how to do consultations, but they don't really go into a lot of detail. You really have to get into it to kind of figure out how to do things a little bit better.
Yeah.
But they cover the basics, definitely.
Cool. Okay. So they kind of start you off, give you a little bit of experience, but yeah, like you're saying, like that's something that you kind of got to navigate on your own. It's just kind of repetition, learning how to communicate with clients and stuff like that.
Learning what works, what doesn't.
Yeah. And then so after Starmark, where was the next place that you ended up working at?
After Starmark, I didn't work anywhere. I just started this.
Okay. So you started Refining Dogs right after Starmark. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that a little bit here. So you and I have been working together a little over 30 days now. And so how long did you have the business open before you and I started working together?
Officially, I had it open since November, so about a month, a little over a month.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And you were just kind of like that first month, just kind of getting yourself organized, right? Doing all the paperwork to get the business up and running, and then just trying to kind of figure out.
And before that, I was taking in like family dogs and people I knew, and just adding up some reviews and that type of stuff, But I officially started looking for clients in November.
Okay, cool.
And wasn't going well.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, what were you doing at the time to get new clients?
So I did the little decals on my car. So when I drove around town, they had that information. I would go out and do some marketing. I think I went to the outlet mall and different places that were outside that I could take my dog to that many people frequented. And then I did a little bit of Facebook ads. But most of the ones I did get that month were just my family talking to people.
Right, exactly.
None of my marketing really worked.
Yeah. Well, word of mouth is great. Like when it comes in. Right. Like that's the way I always feel about it, is it's not really a reliable system to consistently bring you business. It's great when they kind of trickle in, and it's typically an easier sale because you've already been, they referred you and you've largely been sold to them already. But there's no real way to make that scale and know when the next one's going to come in. You're just kind of sitting there waiting for the phone.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you kind of boosted a post on Facebook or something like that. That was kind of your Facebook, extended the Facebook marketing, right?
Yeah, and at the time I didn't really have a lot of money to put into it, so it was only running for maybe a week.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's just like anything else, when Google and Facebook and even YouTube, LinkedIn, all these different social media platforms, right? They'll kind of like give you an offer on the front end of like $35 free or something like that, to run an ad.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you don't know what you're doing, it's just like dog training. If you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to have a lot of success. You can watch YouTube videos and try and figure it out. But again, just like dog training.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I tried watching YouTube videos and I didn't understand anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like I could watch as many dog training videos as I want to. It's like I'll probably pick up a couple of cool things here or there. But at the end of the day, if you want it to work extremely well, you have to study it and really know what you're doing,
Yeah.
So how many clients would you say that you picked up in November? Do you have just like a ballpark estimate?
Maybe about 4.
4 clients, and they were kind of like mixed between board and trains and private lessons.
Yeah, I was taking one board and train at a time, so most of them were private lessons.
Okay, and so let's just kind of talk about like shifting into, once we started working together here, what has been your experience since we implemented, the Google ads, but also the organic Facebook growth strategy?
It immediately grew my business. I became so busy very quickly, and I wasn't expecting it to just hit like that, but it did, and it's profiting.
Yeah, really, really well. So let's get into numbers a little bit here. So we were talking about this before we hopped on the call, and I wanted to save these conversations for the actual call itself. So I remember our first conversation we had together, you were telling me that you're like, hey, in order for me to really keep the business going and not have to get a job, I would need to do 4K myself, right?
Yeah.
And I said to you, like, what would be your goal, right? And you're like, well, I think I said to you, like, would 10K be something that would really excite you? And you were like, yeah, absolutely. And so tell us now how much you've done over the first 30 days of us working together. I'm
just under 20K.
Just under 20K.
Yeah.
So you essentially, your goal that you thought was like, so amazing, right? Like 10K, you essentially doubled it, right? So yeah, I mean, that is so amazing to watch. So what do you think it was that was, that kind of got you to this place? Like, what shifted in your business? Do you feel like it was just being given more of an opportunity, more leads, or what do you think exactly was it?
Definitely more leads. I was doing a bunch of consults, and typically out of those, many were doing board and trains. So right now I'm booked up into April for board and trains.
That feels great, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely just having the opportunity to talk to people, because before you, basically, I couldn't get any consultations, really. I was trying to market as best I could, but nobody was really calling to ask about consultations. I feel like you helped me a lot with deciding my prices, and that helped a lot since I was really underselling myself. But yeah, it's been awesome.
Good. Yeah, and I would love to, we'll talk about pricing in a second, because that's a whole different ballgame. Sure. But so yeah, you were having a hard time even just getting people to call, right? Just in the first place. Like that's what I find with a lot of dog trainers is, just business people in general. You can't really be expected to do everything at all times, right? You can't be the dog trainer, the accountant, the marketer, the entrepreneur, the customer service rep. Like, there's so much to do in a business on a day-to-day basis, and you can try and do it all. But the thing is there's a saying, right? You can be a jack of all trades and a master of none. And that's what I kind of experienced in my own path in business is, you have to kind of offload some things to people who know what they're doing, so that it frees you up to do things that you're really good at doing. And so for yourself, I mean, you can see the power of this already, where, we were talking about before we got on the call here, you're doing 20 grand essentially in the month, but the only reason you're not doing more is strictly just because you don't have the space, right? So you're booked up all the way through April. But yeah, I mean, so tell me a little bit about that. Like, if you had more space, like, you feel like you could be hitting those upper thresholds of like 30K a month, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I'm still consistently getting consultations in. I'm just having to divert them to private lessons right now.
Okay.
But a lot of them would be good board and trains if possible.
Right.
But yeah, I just need the space.
Just need the space. Yeah. Is that something that you'd want to do in the future? I know you talked about investing and putting like maybe some more like kennels up and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely planning on doing that since we have somewhat of a bigger property.
Mhm.
We can put up a kennel building in the back with a training space and
Yeah,
office, hopefully.
yeah, yeah,
But,
yeah.
but that would definitely open up some more doors, and I probably be able to take in triple the amount of boarding trains I'm doing now.
See, how cool is that? And now like you have this extra cash coming in, right?
Mhm.
And you can take that and just invest it back into the business.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes it's kind of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg in
Mhm.
business, right? It's like I don't have the money, I can't take more dogs because I don't have the space to take more dogs.
Yeah.
And in order to take more dogs, I need that space. So I need more money to build more kennels and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So what I always tell people is, and I remember having this conversation with you, that you're just kind of when you first start, you just kind of have to grind it out and figure it out and it doesn't need to be for a year. It can really be for 30, 60, 90 days. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden you can invest back into the business to be able to accommodate more and just keep the business growing.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I am working on saving up because I am having to put back into my business for equipment and things like that. But
Mhm.
I'm definitely not gonna need to wait too long in order to build
Yeah.
that kennel.
Yeah. Awesome. And so another thing that I find so cool is your husband, Joshua, the fact that he was able to, he's not a dog trainer by trade, right? But he
Yeah, no.
is kind of coming into the business to help you. And he was able to leave his second job to kind of just invest more time in the business with you, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's learning. He's trying to get the hang of things.
Yeah.
He's a beginner, but
He's
he's
coming
learning.
along. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It must be great. Like I know for you, you were saying just having the help to film some content and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Like what exactly are you guys doing together when he's in the business now?
Yeah, he's helping me build kind of think of ideas for videos. He definitely helps with distractions as far as bringing dogs out for
Mm,
my boarding trains that are dog reactive. Um, and whenever I am, because I do potty training as well for puppies, so whenever I am in consultations or private lessons, he's here to take them out so I don't ruin the potty training. But
yeah, yeah,
yeah, he's definitely been a super big help.
yeah, yeah. I love a good family business like this. Like my wife Jamie helps me with all my stuff too, and it's just nice to not be in it totally alone, right? And just
Hmm.
it's unbelievable, like what how the burden can kind of be alleviated just for small things like who's going to hold the camera for this next like 30-second video we're going to film, or who's going to let the
Yeah.
dogs out, or whatever it is, while I'm
Hmm.
trying to do, because you can't do it again, you cannot do everything yourself, right?
Yeah.
If you're finding yourself in a place where you can't do consultations or sign on more clients because you're busy doing tasks like letting dogs out to use the bathroom or
Hmm.
whatever it may be, it's like you need to kind of get yourself out of doing those tasks to free yourself up to do the things that actually make the business grow.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so yeah, that's awesome. Do you think he would have any interest in coming in full time, or do you think he kind of likes having his own thing too?
I think he would. He's already been talking about wanting to quit his other job. But
Here you go. You get a little taste, and then you're like, I
yeah,
need to I need to get out of this job.
yeah. But that job brings in really good benefits. So, and
Yeah,
it's part time and
yeah,
overnight, so it's not like it's getting in the way of anything.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but uh, he definitely does want to kind of focus on this and
Mm,
help grow this and see where
cool.
it goes.
Yeah.
And then maybe he wants his own thing after that.
Yeah. Well, you just can see the potential, and you're
Mhm.
doing in your first 30 days, if you do $20,000, right? And you know that you're kind of on a certain level being handicapped just by the amount of space, you can kind of
Mhm.
start putting it together and going, what if we had more space and more people helping out with this? Sky's the limit. People have $100,000 a month dog training businesses. Not everybody wants that. $20,000 a month is a really, really nice lifestyle. You really don't, you know,
Mhm.
need much more than that in my opinion, unless you're
Yeah.
living in Beverly Hills or something like that. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the cool thing is, and the reason that I love entrepreneurship is because the sky is the limit, and there's nobody telling you like, hey, this is how much you get paid, and if you do a good job, maybe you'll get a increase of this percentage every single year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 20, like I'm gonna have to start finding somebody to manage my money because I don't know what to do with all of this.
Yeah.
I've never had this much money before.
Yeah. Well, you know what I would encourage you to do is, well, first of, I'm not a fan. I'm not a financial advisor. Let me just put that stipulation on this. But what I would say is invest it back into the business, for the time being, because it's your number one asset, right? And
Yeah.
if you can invest more money into the business and it grows it by, a certain percentage, that's the most important thing to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have been doing that.
Cool. Yeah, I know you have. I mean, the fact of the matter is like being able to just accommodate more dogs and more kennels, that would if you just can take on, for you, like an extra, say 2 dogs even a month or something like that, right? That could be the difference of an extra $7,000, right? For you. Yeah, maybe
definitely.
even more.
Yeah, I believe it's more.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you're doing like behavior modification cases and stuff like that, it's even more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, I would just keep investing it back into the business because at this point, it's just giving you such a great return. So let's talk a little bit about pricing here. Okay. So just walk me through, when we first started working together, what did your programs look like for everybody and what were your prices at?
So I offered board and trains, but I only took one at a time. My prices were $1,600 for 2 weeks, $3,000 for 4, and then I think it was $4,400 for the 6 weeks.
Right.
And then for private lessons, they were $500 for 6 lessons, $900 for 12. And I did offer single lessons to add on, but not as like a starting point.
Right. And so where are you at right now when it comes to pricing and programs?
So with the private lessons, we raised it to $1,000 for 4 lessons.
Right.
And then
doubled the money and less lessons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the board and trains, we stayed with 1,600 for 2 weeks. We went up to 3,200 for the 4 and 4,800 for the 6.
Right. And you can see there's still room for growth here, right? Like I would really love to get you to a point where you're at $1,000 for each board and train. But something that, I think is a great idea whenever you're starting out a new marketing initiative or you're testing different things in your business is to not change too many variables at once, right? So if you just say like, I'm going all in on all these different things, that works as well, if you're committed to it, but it's nice to be able to incrementally change things and increase prices. And that way you get comfortable with it as well, because it's not such a shock to your system when you're selling it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear that whenever you can make more and work less, that's definitely a win.
Yeah.
So let's talk about sales a little bit. So you had, prior to us working together, you were doing in-person consultations, right? Yeah. And so how have the consultations been going, since you've been doing a lot more of them?
Oh, good. So I was a little bit nervous just because the prices were completely different than what I was used to. I hadn't gotten the chance really to sell a board and train at my full prices because I was doing like family dogs.
Right.
So my first consultation was a behavior mod, and I sold that one for the 4,800.
I remember that. I remember getting a message from you like $4,800. Like that's a really good start to this.
Yeah. But yeah, I did have to work on being more personable, and that was something I kind of learned doing consultations at Starmark, because I'm a very blunt person when it comes to telling about what your dog needs and all of that.
Right.
So I kind of learned a little bit at Starmark about in-person consultations, and that kind of carried into the consultations I'm doing now. But you definitely gave me the confidence and some kind of strategies to put in when people are on the fence or kind of questioning prices, or other trainers are in consideration as well. But implementing those strategies, everybody's at least signed up for something, or just couldn't afford it. But that's where I'm kind of working on price plans and payment plans.
Right. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more just about like, your conversion rate and stuff like that. So you're kind of saying that you go out and every time you're doing one of these, with the exclusion like a few people here or there who just,
Mhm.
you're not going to sell everybody, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just something you have to realize. And when you don't get the sale, it's like, okay, that's just the mentality should always just be, okay, that no got me one no closer to a yes, right?
Mhm.
That's the way I try and look at everything is you're going to get no's. So just keep pushing forward and don't let that affect your confidence or whatever it may be. But
Yeah.
it sounds like for you, when you go out, you're pretty consistently like selling somebody some sort of dog training package, right? Whether it be
Yes.
your private lessons or your board and trains. So kind of
Yes. And I
walk.
have had
Go
some
ahead.
people tell me no and then come back and call me a couple weeks later and be like,
Yeah.
okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been selling at least private lessons very consistently.
Good.
Um, the board and trains I think have let up a little bit just because I'm so booked out.
Yeah.
I feel like those the people that do need board and trains are like kind of in a rush or kind of need them like sooner than
Yeah.
April. But and that's
Yeah.
okay.
That's okay. I mean, at the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's such a good problem to have to be booked out through April,
Hmm.
right? Like just the peace of mind that gives you that you're not just waiting on the next client to come in and you just know that it's all paid for and stuff like that. It's a great
Yeah.
feeling, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me like a little bit about your mindset when you go in. Do you try and sell the board and train first? Is that kind of how do you work that? What is your goal when you go into these consultations?
Well, I don't have anything kind of set in my head at
Mhm.
first because I do want to see the dog first and see what would be best for them. Some
Exactly.
dogs
Yep.
aren't going to do well on the board and train. So most of the time, well, lately have been a lot of puppies
Mhm.
just because Christmas happened and
Yeah.
everybody got young dogs or adopted a
Right.
dog. Um, so for puppies, I have been doing more of the private lessons just because they're really young. I've had like 6 week, 7 week old puppies that aren't ready for a whole extensive, board and train with obedience.
Right.
But there have been some that really wanted me to do the potty training, like they were just done and over their head with it.
Right.
So those turned into board and trains very quickly. But I do take into account the dog first.
Mhm.
When it's an older dog, and I'm not saying like old, but an adult dog, and I can see the relationship with the owner that it's going to really benefit from a board and train and just the very strong reinforcement as far as manners and things like that.
Yeah.
It is a lot easier when the owner comes in afterwards and just applies it.
Right.
So most of the time I have been trying to sell the board and trains with adult dogs.
Okay, good.
Um, and it's just a lot of puppies right now. So a lot of private lessons have been sold as well.
Right.
But yeah, I'm going in confident,
Right.
definitely more confident than I was before,
Good.
and trying to sell it. And I'm also kind of playing on their biggest issues
Mhm.
and telling them like what can be done, like kind of giving them that their dog can accomplish all of these things. And a
Right.
lot of people don't think that. A lot of people don't think their dog can do a lot, and they can. They just need to learn the way to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's brilliant. That's kind of what the in-person consultation is for. It's multifaceted, right? So first and
Mhm.
foremost, you get to build a better connection with them and a real relationship.
Yeah.
And you do that face to face. You can't really replace that with a phone call. You can kind of mimic it with Zoom consultations, but there's just so many different things that you can do in person. Maybe putting the dog on a leash, right, while you're
Mhm.
there, doing a small like
I did
demoing for
that
them.
yesterday.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
powerful, right? When people see
Mhm.
their dog, not just like a video of someone else's dog, but their actual dog behaving in a manner they've never seen before.
Yeah. Yesterday, I had a consultation, and they didn't want to let the dog out of the crate because he was way too hyper. He
Yeah.
was gonna jump all over me,
Mhm.
and I was like, I do need to see kind of that behavior. And so they let him out of the crate, and he was all over me,
Yeah.
jumping like over my head. And this is an adult black mouth cur,
Okay.
so
Wow.
definitely very energetic. And I just put
Yeah.
a slip leash on him, kind of showed him my boundaries and rewarded him for better behavior. And within a couple minutes, he was just laying down next to me, and they
Yeah.
were very impressed with how quickly I got him to calm down.
They're amazed, right? They're like,
Yeah,
I've never seen this before.
yeah.
Yeah. How did that end up going with them? Did they end up booking something with you?
Yes, they're going to start private lessons within the next week.
Fantastic. There you go. That goes to show you how powerful that is. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's multifaceted, right? You get to build that connection with them. They get to see that you are a subject matter expert and that you're just not somebody like when you can make such a profound impact like that on them. It's going to just leave a lasting impression. And they're going to be like, first off, it just puts you above the rest of the competition. Most people are not doing this. Most people are getting on, answering the phone call. Okay, yeah, we could definitely help. Here's our prices. Okay, you need to think about it. Call me back. Right? We're not doing that.
Yeah, I actually did get a call, and I told him that we don't have cookie cutter programs. We tailor all of our programs to the specific dog. So I do need to do a free consultation to meet the dog and kind of adjust things for them. And he said that I was the first person he's called that day that actually did not give him, oh, we can just do basic obedience for this price.
Right.
So he really appreciated that it is specifically for his dog.
Yeah.
And was really happy about that.
I love to hear that. Yeah. Because the analogy I always draw is like, I think of this no different than when, like being a doctor and somebody goes to a doctor, right? And the doctor doesn't let the patient prescribe the treatment, the form of treatment, right? Or the medicine that they're going to take to get better, right? They go there and they diagnose the situation. They tell them based off of your symptoms and, you know, whatever else is going on, here's the form of treatment and you know, therapy we're going to use to get you better. And it's the same thing for a dog trainer, right? Not seeing the dog in person, how could you possibly really understand it fully? Because what you're doing in that situation over a phone call is assuming that that person, the client, has all the information, and they don't. They're just going to go off of what they think they know, which may be completely wrong because they're not professional dog trainers.
Yeah, and actually that specific guy thought that his dog had separation anxiety. But when I go to the consultation, the dog's just not mentally stimulated enough and is tearing things up because he's bored.
Yeah, and there you go. It's like, so on the phone call, if you just take him at face value and say, okay, yes, your dog has separation anxiety, you could sell him a program that is totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
Right. Or you sell him something and he doesn't want it because he doesn't really sound like it's going to help him because he gave you a piece of information that isn't even correct. So the thing is for dog trainers too, it's like you go out and do these consultations and you get to make your decision whether you even want the job or not. Right. You get to meet the client. And if they seem like a total pain and somebody who's going to be nothing but trouble, you don't sign them on as a client.
Yep.
Right.
And I definitely have had those.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, I think people, why don't you speak on this? Because I think this will be helpful for people. I think a lot of people have a fear that they're going to go out and do a consultation and it's going to waste their time. The person's not going to buy. And, you know, it's just going to be a colossal failure. My viewpoint on it is you have to just look at it on a 30-day basis, right? How many consults did you do and how much revenue did it result in? Because if before you're doing $5,000 in a month and then you start doing this and it gets you to 15,000 or even 10,000, then it's worth it, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I've definitely had consultations that weren't like really for it, or I could tell that they wanted magic.
Right.
And I can't do that.
Right.
I need them to do their part, and it's just really just moving on to the next one. And I typically do have consults back to back, and after I leave that consult and I'm on to another consult, like I forget about it.
Exactly.
And then I sell the next consult, and
exactly.
That's that.
And that's the power of having all the different leads, right? It's not feeling like if I don't sell this person, I'm going to be destitute, or I don't know how I'm going to pay my phone bill or whatever it is. It's
and
like, okay.
I felt before. When I was only getting maybe 2 consults a week.
Yeah.
I'm like, I really have to sell it or I'm not going to make any money. But now I'm doing maybe 10, 12 consults a week.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's really amazing to hear. And it's a mixed blend of the ads that we're running, right? But also Facebook traffic as well, right?
Yeah, I've had a lot of Facebook traffic, and just doing what you told me to do with posting more content. and friending people. So they see that I've definitely had a lot of traction from that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's powerful and it's compounding, right? Knowing like
Mhm.
what people to friend and knowing what content to post. It's, you know, I remember with you, like you got some people like the first couple days, which is
Yeah.
always great when that happens. But the thing is, if that doesn't happen, it can take some time, but you can see the momentum right now shifting when you just
Mhm.
consistently do it daily, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really powerful stuff. Um, so let's talk about just, I know you were touching on before some stuff that we have talked about, which is handling objections when it comes to pricing or people saying, I'm gonna have to think about it, or let me talk to my wife or my husband, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
How are you handling that now? Because I know that's something that a lot of dog trainers can struggle with.
Yeah, so I started telling them to have all um, everybody there for the consultation so that decisions can be made.
Mhm.
And then as far as, well, once I did that, they kind of stopped needing to talk to their husband or talk to their wives because they were there. And everybody could ask the questions they needed to ask.
Yeah, that's great.
Um, but as far as the um, people saying no, it's all about price right now.
Mhm.
And I understand that. I understand that some people can't afford these prices, especially when it comes to dog training, because it is a luxury. It's not really something that people need to do when it comes to
Right.
basic obedience.
Right.
So I understand that. And that's why I'm looking into payment plans to kind of see how that will change things as far as consultations go.
Right.
Um, and the only other ones that said no or ones that I knew wouldn't work out anyway,
Mhm.
that we didn't kind of fit, kind of get along or whatnot. But all the ones that went well, they signed up. They
Right.
signed up for something.
And you
And
do have some people that say, I'll have to think about it, or say no, maybe even, but then they end
yeah,
up getting back in touch with you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have had people say no and then call me back because they decided that it's probably just worth it. And then the people that couldn't quite afford it and said they really had to talk about it and kind of look at their budget, they did end up calling back or at least called me and said that it wasn't gonna be
Mhm.
able to work right now, but they would, um, save up to do it in the future.
Right.
So I really think I'd have less of that if
Right.
I had payment plans.
Yeah, and so you're looking into using a financing company, right? Lending
Mhm.
USA. Have
Yeah.
you had the conversation with them yet?
No, it'll be after this.
After this, okay, good.
Mhm.
Yeah, and stuff like that can be a huge help. You know, the thing I always think about is this: is some people have the luxury in their dog training business where they all their clients are coming to them through word of mouth because they've been operating for 20 years or whatever it
Yeah.
may be, and people are just so ready to sign up. But the thing is not everybody can do that, right? And
Mhm.
I've been in a place in my life before where I can't do that. I'm sure you've been in a place in your life where you wouldn't be able to just cut a check for $4,500.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
the thing I always think about is how would I want somebody to treat me?
Mhm.
And that's how I'm going to treat my clients, right? So what that means is if you'd really appreciate somebody working with you and giving you an opportunity to do the program by giving
Mhm.
them some other payment options or whatever it may be, as long as you
Yeah.
just set it up so that you couldn't possibly lose, like you're not performing any dog training services before you get paid for that amount of services,
Mhm.
you can't, you're not going to get screwed. You're not going to lose out. And
Yeah.
so it just comes
And
down to
I
being a human and kind of treating people like that.
Yeah. And the people that can't afford it and they like, you can tell they want to do the training, they wish they could. I
Mhm.
do end up giving them a small tip, like, hey, do this instead of this. And typically they do call back
Yeah.
and be like, okay, let's do the training because the tip did work.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so just giving them little small tidbits of info without giving them all the answers does
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, because it makes you stand out too, right? It comes back to you versus your competition. And if your competition is just on a phone call and is giving a price, who are they going to remember when push comes to shove? Because there's a good chance that like if this person doesn't work with you right away, they are
Mhm.
still having this pain of like their dog not listening or behaving in a certain manner that they don't want. So they're going to do some sort of dog training. But so if they make up their mind that they actually are going to save the money to do it, or maybe, they have somebody who's willing to lend them the money, or they are going to take out a credit card to do it, whatever it may be, who are they going to want to work with? The person who just had the 5-minute phone call, or the person who spent a half hour with them actually trying to help them,
Yeah.
And at the end of the
and
day, it doesn't really, it costs you a half hour of your time.
yeah, that first board and train that I sold, the 6-week behavior mod,
Yeah.
they actually had evaluations set up with other trainers after me.
Mhm.
But after talking with them and kind of what's it called,
Empathizing with them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, with them and telling them that I understand their issues and all of that. They ended up calling me back before I left their parking lot
Yeah.
and saying that they were going to do it, and they canceled other evaluations with the
Yeah.
trainers.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like I get on calls with dog trainers all the time, and the first call we do is largely just kind of hearing about the business and where they're at. And I try and give away I try and make the phone call actually valuable for people. I don't want to just get on it and be like, prospect them, be like, is this worth my time? Can I sell you something? And then like, no, okay, see you later. It's, if I don't feel like we're a good fit, it doesn't mean that I can't share some things that I've found to be very helpful for other dog trainers to try and help you. Because the thing is if that helps them and they can bring in $1,000 or whatever, and then all of a sudden they can do that and, reinvest that into their business, they're going to think of me. They're going to think of the guy who actually helped them to get started versus all the other people who are like, and it's not worth my time to talk to you. So it's the same thing for dog trainers. If you can make a real connection with people and really understand them, that stands out and people remember that.
Yeah, definitely. And I can see that like happening in the consultation. Like a lot of the time people get more comfortable. They kind of start out kind of rigid and I can't really explain it, but you can see them get more comfortable as the consultation goes and kind of open up more as far as what's actually happening and getting into a little bit more detail, because most of the time people want me to tell them what's going on. And I don't know the dog quite yet. So I do need them to tell me everything. Totally. And as I talk with them and I wouldn't say that I'm so likable, but I am more personable than I used to be, and I can definitely make them open up in different ways as far as in the compliment thing. That has been working and giving, the women compliments.
Yeah. We talked about just giving a compliment to them, right? Yeah. Yeah, I like your shoes, or I love your house, or whatever, I have a client who said to me one time, he's like, I always try and communicate with people on a different level than just dog training. Like if I see golf clubs in the garage when I'm walking to the house, I go, are you a golfer?
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. And how do you feel like that's like affected you? You feel like that just kind of like breaks people open a little bit more? And
yeah, it does. It softens them up a bit, especially the guys, because they really, all the guys tend to not think they need the dog training. It's usually the wives that are having issues, just because they're soft with the dogs.
Right.
But then once I kind of, talk about their football team or something that I see that they have, then they start to be like, oh, okay, you're cool. So they're actually talking.
Yeah. Because it's so true. That's always been my experience as well. It's like the husband is usually, the one who's going to kind of rain on the parade a little bit in the beginning. Like, do we really need to do this? And because in a way it could be, your dog is, as they say, man's best friend. And it could be kind of a little bit of a shot to the ego if the guy feels like, hey, I don't have control over the situation here, my household, my dog. And so here's somebody coming in here telling me what I need to do. Plus, just, it's cliche. The husband doesn't want to be spending the money. And, as a husband, I can totally relate to that. And, it just comes back to actually building a relationship. And like you're saying, just giving them a compliment, trying to communicate with them on a different level. And you've noticed already that that's kind of softened the guys up a little bit and made them more receptive to your offer, right?
Yes. And also when they have kids, like giving the kids little treats to get to the dog and telling them how to do things, that really helps as well. A lot of people do ignore the kids, and they're part of the family, and they're going to need to do things as well to get the dog to not pretty much bully them.
Totally.
It's these
little things, right? Yeah, including the family, right? And because it's the family's dog. It's not just like you're doing dog training with one person. And again, it just makes you stand out, and just the little extra effort that goes into this, that just goes such a long way, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So let's talk about just sales for one more minute here. I just want to kind of go into like, what are the main like 3 to 5 things, even really just the top 3 things that you really try and accomplish when you go in there? What are the things you're trying to touch on and get out of the people? Like, what information you're trying to collect from them and get them to understand?
So what's the most important thing that caused them to call a trainer?
Mm-hmm.
What did the dog do, or what event happened
Mm-hmm.
that was like, this is it, I need to call a trainer.
Right.
And then kind of play on that as well, and how that affects life, and also what can be done as far as training to remedy that.
Right.
And I kind of try to paint a picture in their head of what's possible,
Mm.
and even show them a little bit of videos of my dogs as far as their obedience, and or tell them stories if I don't have videos of that specific event.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of tell them stories where my dogs did something that their dog could do that would kind of blow their mind, be like, oh my
Right.
gosh. Um,
Right.
and a lot of the times when it comes to behavior mons, I really, really kind of want to push how serious things are,
Yeah.
um, and make sure they understand what the implications are if this continues,
Mm-hmm.
because behavior does escalate. If
Totally.
you allow it for so long, it does get worse. So I, one, make sure that they know the seriousness of things, if it is that type of stuff. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Two, I paint the picture of what their dog could be, and kind of um, you know put it in their head that they could have this perfect life with their dog that's not stressful and actually enjoyable, because a lot of people, they just look so stressed out when they bring the dogs out, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like tense, and a lot of time I can feel their tension, and
Mm.
I do have to tell them, you can relax, it's fine.
Yeah.
um, but they are, I was like, we can get rid of this tension, like whenever the dog comes out, you can be totally confident that you can control your dog. um,
Yeah. So
but yeah, I
let
do
me
play
just
on
talk
emotions
about
with
that
it.
1 second, because
Mhm.
I don't want to miss this.
Okay.
You just hit on something so important that I think a lot of dog trainers don't, they miss the opportunity to do this. Is you're talking about the human's tension, right? Like the
Mhm.
stress they feel in public with their dog, right?
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, the dog is not the one paying you.
Yeah.
It's the human being that's making the decision to pay you. So
Mhm.
yeah, you want to focus on like why the dog is doing what it's doing and explain to the person. And you want to say like, hey, we can make that, we can remedy these problems and make this go away. But at the end of the day, what you're really selling to them is the peace of mind that after you do this dog training, that the human being will no longer have these bad feelings of embarrassment or
Mhm.
tension or whatever it may be. So focus on the
Yeah.
person, right? Because you're
Yes.
selling to a person, you're not selling to the dog.
And it's my favorite part of the go home lesson. They're the private
Mm-hmm.
lessons where I can actually show them that that is happening.
Yeah.
When they're walking their dog and they're holding the leash like this and like anticipating them pulling, and I'm like, you can relax, just
Yeah.
relax your arms. And
Yeah.
the dog stays where it needs to be, and they kind
Yeah.
of like, oh my gosh, like I don't have to be so tense when I walk
Yeah.
my dog.
Yeah.
It can be an
Exactly.
enjoyable moment.
Totally. Yeah. This doesn't need to be like a total stressful
Yeah.
disaster. Yeah. Well, listen, I want to wrap it up in a second here because I know you
Yeah.
probably are super busy doing more consultations, board and trains, whatever it may be. But one final question for you, Justine. You just think about where you were 30 days ago. If you were speaking to somebody that was in, your position now, what
Mhm.
advice would you give to them?
Oh, hire you. Because like I was looking for jobs, honestly. I was looking for a part-time job because I wasn't able to cover my half
Mm,
of things, and then Josh was working 2 jobs and not being able to sleep really. So it was a really stressful time on my
yeah.
family, and trying to see where this money was going to come from.
Yeah.
But marketing definitely helped so much, and knowing that I can't do it and I wasn't really good at it. And if you're not good at it, maybe hire someone who is.
Right.
Because that's a huge part of getting the leads to start things.
Exactly.
You can't
Yeah.
make money if people aren't calling.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing I always think about is this, there's always these people in life that we kind of put up on a pedestal, right? And we say like we look at them because they're so great at what they do. And it can happen even just with other dog trainers or other entrepreneurs, whatever it may be. And you could say like, could I really do that? Could I really accomplish that? And it's kind of hard to wrap your head around it, right?
Yeah.
But like you're a testament to that if you really just are devoted to something and dedicated to it and you want to make it work, like you didn't really give yourself another choice. You were like, hey, I don't have a ton of money to invest in this. I've saved some money. I want to give this a try to see if this is going to work. And it wasn't a matter of like if it's going to work for you. It's just how you were going to make it work, and you did make it work.
Yeah, and I was kind of like on my last bit of money for marketing when I called, or when I
Send me a
reached out
message.
to you.
Yeah.
And after, if that didn't work, then I didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
But I think it did. And then
Yeah.
you just got me the people calling, and then I could sell.
Yeah.
And I knew I could sell. I just needed, people.
Yeah, I knew you were not going to have any problems. You would voice to me like some concerns, like I've sold before. I'm not sure if I can do it now. And I was like, there's no difference in owning your own business, and sales is sales. Like if you could sell dog training at another company, you could certainly do it in your own company because it's representative of you and your brand and who you are as a dog trainer. So it's only going to make it easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, my friend. Well, listen, I really appreciate you doing this. I'll have to have you back on again, maybe in like a couple months, to do another check-in and see where you are at then. Maybe Josh will be out of his job full-time in the business. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Okay.
Yeah, me too. It's
All right,
only
Justine.
going up from here.
Yeah, it's only going to get better from here. All right, my friend. We'll talk again soon. Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.